The opinions expressed by Peter Wexler, Robert Quittner, Kyle Plotkin, Michael Hart, Nicholas Hamner, and guests on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this network. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subjects covered. Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management LLC, aka BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM and Franklin Retirement Solutions are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents.
So welcome back to another edition of Solving the Retirement Puzzle. Once again, I am Nick Hamner. With me today is Mike Hart and Kyle Plotkin. Solving the Retirement Puzzle is presented by Franklin Retirement Solutions. We are a Horsham, PA-based financial planning, retirement income planning firm, working with retirees as they get ready to retire and enjoy their retirement, making sure their money lasts longer than they do. That is the goal. A little morbid, but that is the goal. So this week, as always, we're going to talk about a couple of news stories we found relevant, and I am going to start things off, as I always do, it seems, and I'm going to talk about restaurants. Mike, how many times you say you? How many times would you say your family eats out a week?
At least once or twice. Weekends are usually. I mean, you have a daughter, so weekends are hectic with sports and different activities. So yeah, mostly at least once, and usually on the weekends.
Yeah. Kyle, how about you?
We keep DoorDash in business.
Yeah, I wouldn't normally say. I would not recommend gas station macaroni and cheese, but during softball season, gas station mac and cheese is kind of a mainstay. Not my preference.
How many snack bar hot dogs have you done so far?
I have avoided the snack bar this year.
So far.
I have bought 3 Diet Cokes. That's it. I have not bought any food from the snack bar. I'm trying to keep this, I'm trying to keep my figure slim.
Diet Cokes, that's 0 calories.
Yeah.
So you're.
And plus, whatever it's doing to my kidneys is just going to have those live forever. Plasticized.
That's fine. We're all, it's cell phones and microwaves. We're all in for it.
But yeah, this week has been big in terms of restaurant news. Red Lobster, on the heels of shutting 100 stores kind of overnight, they have filed for Chapter 11 protection. You've got news going around that Wendy's is starting to look into a value menu again. McDonald's is considering, a lot of fast food restaurants are looking back towards value menus. And then you had articles and a couple of journals. Money.com was the one I quoted, that their restaurant costs, or restaurant prices anyway, are still rising, even in the face of lowering prices. So the money statistics they had, that restaurants' prices increased 0.3% in March. At the same time, grocery prices dropped by 0.2%. So that's a half-point swing just in the cost of restaurant prices. They want to blame inflation. It's not really just inflation, because you will touch on that, it looks like, later. But it's having a real impact. Another article I read, 68% of consumers polled say they are eating out less due to the costs of eating out. I know I have friends that, it's him, his wife, and their 2 kids, and it cost them $60 to eat at McDonald's last week. I mean, they're big eaters, but
$15. I mean, $15 is sort of like the, standard now, even at McDonald's. I go to Chick-fil-A, my value meal or, combo meal is $15. So yeah, you take that times 4.
Cost us $30 for a pizza the other night.
That's insane. I mean, granted, it has been a while. I graduated high school in 1997. That's way more years ago than it should be. But I remember, you'd go on a school field trip, you'd have lunch. Your mom could hand you $5 and you could feed yourself. If you were lucky, she'd give you 10, and that was
Oh, you were rich.
a combo meal. That was extra fries and maybe even a pie.
Supersize it.
Oh yeah, of course. But I looked. So looking at value or menu prices that I could verify either through pictures or other references. Wendy's Junior Bacon Cheeseburger. Classic.
It's not $1 anymore.
No, but it was on the 99-cent menu forever. And granted, it would get a little smaller, a little smaller. It has stayed small. But in 2007, a Junior Bacon Cheeseburger was 99 cents. So $1 in 2007 is the same as $1.51 in 2024. But the Junior Bacon Cheeseburger is not $1.54. It is $2.39 for essentially a round White Castle burger at this point. So that's not just the cost of inflation and impacting that price. There's a little corporate nudge there. The McDonald's Big Mac. There is an unofficial Big Mac index. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
I pulled this from The Economist. In 2002, verified by photos of a menu and website information from 2002, a Big Mac was $2.39. So $1 in 2002 is worth $1.74 today. So $2.39 in 2002 would be $4.17 today. Big Mac is $5.69. Again, there's more to it than just inflation going into this. There's price pumping everywhere. And then on the news of Red Lobster, you've got restaurants closing. And there's all these words, we lost. I say lost. Ruby Tuesday went out of business a couple years ago. You're seeing Red Lobster go. The reasons for Red Lobster going out are filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Is it the endless shrimp promotion that they miscalculated like they want to make it sound?
Yeah, I'd personally like to take responsibility for the Quaker Bridge Red Lobster closing, because when they would do the endless shrimp, I'd put them to the test.
Did you close out the Joe's Crab Shack that was over there too?
I may have. I didn't see the direct correlation that I see with the endless shrimp at Red Lobster, but it's not out of the question. I can eat.
But no, I did not know. When I don't know the relationship between Red Lobster and Darden restaurants anymore. Forever, Darden was associated with Red Lobster.
I think Darden sold them off.
So they sold them off, and it looks like the company that bought Red Lobster, because Red Lobster was corporate owned, which means they had the land, they had the buildings. The company that bought them sold the land to a subsidiary, rented that land back to Red Lobster, and then jacked the rent up. It's robbing Peter to save Paul. And
that's called private equity.
That is, it's very similar to what happened with Kmart, I think, and Sears, and Kmart and Sears were one and the same at one point. So that's, there's plenty of reasons restaurants close, but people are always worried about restaurants closing. I know during the height of the COVID shutdowns, everybody you heard complaining was, I can't open my restaurant. I'm going to go out of business. And it was always a pizza shop. Always these local pizza shops that were so worried about closing. And I know, at least in my neighborhood, I drive past 2 other pizza shops to go to the pizza shop we like. And you have to wonder, how many restaurants does a neighborhood really need, or how many restaurants can a neighborhood support versus what's out there? So if restaurants close, Red Lobster is a big one, but if restaurants close, is that a sign of a major trend in the markets? Should we be worried if restaurants close, or are we still seeing like a distillation?
Well, and my wife and I, we go to Asbury Park a lot, and we see a lot of non-chain restaurants that pop up and seem to be doing quite well. So I wonder if it's just a shift away from these chains where, like, let's be honest, you're typically not getting super high quality food to, these, basically, mom and pop shops where, they do one thing, but they do it really well. So like, again, in Asbury Park, there's a Mexican restaurant called Lazzeria, and it's amazing. We go there a lot. So, and there's, Asbury has like sort of one restaurant for, whatever you feel like eating, but they're all exceptional. Yeah. So, it's, again, I think maybe it's more of a trend away from these chains that people have been eating at their whole life. And
Right.
hey, if I am going to spend the money, I want to get, quality food.
Well,
I think that you're seeing a lot more, like you said, like local, either one-offs or small chains like Miller's Ale House. There's
mhm.
one that opened up near me. Uh, the Red Lobster by me is still open, by the
Yeah.
way. I did look at that, but uh, you're seeing a lot more of these type places, and I'm wondering if they're trying to shift more of their revenue over to the alcohol side since they're all also bars. And maybe that helps them stay in business because the margins on the alcohol is way higher than the
That's true.
margins on the food, and it takes less staff to deal with. So I'm wondering if that might be something within the industry that is happening.
Well, I got curious and I went and pulled a bunch of data and where I could. And it looks like at the start of COVID, when the CDC was looking to figure out how to mitigate the impact of these measures on the restaurant industry specifically, they studied the Los Angeles metropolitan area. And looking at LA and looking at all their figures, they came up with a ratio that every 1,000 people in a community, you can support 2.3 restaurants.
Hmm.
So I then went and looked at what my zip code where I live. It's suburban Philadelphia, a northeastern suburb of Philadelphia. In Bucks County, we have 17,000 people approximately in my zip code. Per the CDC, that translates to 39.1 restaurants. Per a Google search of how many restaurants are in my neighborhood, in my zip code, just restaurants that have my zip code, 55. Within that, 25% are pizza shops.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I'm curious. Like, do they make any distinctions as to what they consider to be a restaurant?
Well, that's it, because that 55 are proper restaurants. Sit down, well, at least the idea of a sit down place, 55. If you throw in Chinese takeout, if you throw in places like Wawa, that number's at least 70.
Right. Right.
So a community that can feasibly support 39 restaurants has close to 70.
Yeah. So almost double.
That's one pizza shop roughly for 1,000 people. We're seeing a distillation. We're seeing restaurants go because the community can't support them, and the bad ones are going out, the good ones are hanging around. But on your note to, I'm going to skip this because that was a couple of blogs had some advice to restaurants on how to judge your market, and it was assume your target market comes in once a month, so your target market population should be how many people your restaurant can support times the days in the month. And that came up with a higher number. So my same suburban area, you figure 1,550 households, figure they eat out 10 times a week. That's 15,500 meals a month to be supported. Figure your average restaurant can cover 300 because it's a range. So, your high-end restaurants, they're going to go for like 100 covers. Your fast casual are going to go for 400 or 500. So that averages around 3. Doing that math, 52. So CDC says we could support 39 restaurants. Restaurant advice says maybe 50. And in actuality, there's close to 70. So again, distillation. But an Ohio State study shows, we were talking about mom and pop restaurants. How many restaurants survive past the first year?
I'm sure it's a fraction, right? I know it can't be high.
No, I'm 30%.
Close. 60% of restaurants close in their first year. And that number is exacerbated if you take out months 10 through 12 because bankruptcy rules changed. And so now it's in your best interest to go out early. And a lot of that is the mom and pops that think, oh, well, I like to cook and I don't like my job. I'm going to open up my dream restaurant. And it turns out to be the same restaurant that everybody else is doing. To the point that we had a rule, because in a former life I was a food journalist, reviewing restaurants. Well, not really reviewing restaurants, but writing up restaurants, covering what restaurants were opening, new bar concepts, all that kind of stuff. Our rule was, if they have chicken fingers on the menu and they are not a chicken-focused restaurant, there's a very good chance they're gone in that first year. Because there's nothing special. To your point, the ones in Asbury Park, there's one, but they're really good at what they do. In my own neighborhood, we had a restaurant called Little Istanbul. It was formerly Little Constantinople, but why they changed it, I can't say. But now it's gone. I mean, it was in business for probably 9 months. I ate there once. They were one of those that were like, you no free refills. You're buying a can of soda for $3, just that kind of ridiculousness. But the food itself was okay for Turkish cuisine. You'll never guess what restaurant came in and replaced it. What their primary menu option is.
Mexican
Pizza.
pizza.
Yeah. Another Italian pizza shop. That's just what happens. But yeah. You're not seeing high quality restaurants go out as often as you're seeing these lowbrow, get them up as quick as possible, serve pizza and chicken fingers. Those places are in and out all the time.
You would think that would make it harder to get financing to open those places if the banks know that this many are going to go out of business. I mean, at what point do they, start vetting these things harder and make it more difficult to open? Just a question that just ran through my mind. But
yeah, and I do know at different points restaurants face different levels of scrutiny, which causes unfortunately, a lot of people will tap in to their own methods of financing to support these restaurants, at least early on. And that's why they go out so quickly, because if you tap into your 401k to open up your dream restaurant, the easiest way to make $1 million running a restaurant is to start out with $10 million. It's not a great option for retirees to go into, but so many people see that as their dream goal. He's going to run the kitchen and she's going to run the front of the house, and it's going to be their dream little place for all their friends to hang out. Well, they comp all the meals for their friends. The stress of the kitchen gets really old really quick, and the restaurant's gone.
Yeah, it's not, I know from, just different things I've read. I mean, the margins, are pretty thin, and it's a tough business to make work, especially over the long haul. But again, to your point, if you have one thing and you just do it super well, and I grew up in Bucks County, and so I'm thinking of Not Solo Pasta has been open as long as I can remember, and they have a tiny little parking lot, but they're always packed because everybody knows if you want really good Italian food, that when you're in Lower Makefield, that's where you go.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the amount of in my house we tend to eat a lot of Mexican food, and the amount of Mexican restaurants that are available on, say, DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever, is always growing and then shrinking.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many pop up and then they're immediately closed. And then what goes into that same location 6 months later? Another Mexican restaurant.
So that some of that is, well, you file for bankruptcy, but the assets are there. So another guy just slings in, or you come in under a different incorporated name.
Private equity.
Yeah.
I did try to convince my wife. There was an ad on the Facebook Marketplace for a pizza place that either was sold or going out of business, and they were selling their pizza ovens. And so I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to my wife and just said, "Hear me out." And that was the end of the conversation. She did not hear me out, but
I wanted to buy an old ambulance and turn it into a food truck called the Hambulance, and just sell different medically themed hamburgers.
Steamed hams.
That's only a Utica expression.
Oh, that's right.
But no, I had a whole menu lined up. You had the Anthony Edwards, because he was the main doctor on the ER forever, Mark Green. It was going to be green onions and a goose egg.
Well, and your last name is Hamner, so you just
I liked it. I also liked my hot dog restaurant idea, Hunter's Bounty, the dogs, because that makes sense if you say it backwards. But no. If more wives were involved in the restaurant decisions, there would be far fewer restaurants, because my wife has shut down every restaurant idea I've ever had. Still want a hot dog restaurant, though. All right. But that's for a different show. That's for a different type of show. Certainly not this one. If we're talking about good financial decisions, me running a restaurant is not one of them. But yeah, if you're thinking about running a restaurant, if you want to tap into your 401k to fund a restaurant, the general rule is don't do that. But if you have questions on your 401k and your retirement plan, that is what we do here every day at Franklin Retirement Solutions. So give us a call. Hit us up on the email that you see below here, info@franklinrs, or give us a call at 215-657-9200. We'd be happy to talk with you. And I am done talking, so Kyle, it is your turn.
All right. So one of our favorite topics, of course, is inflation, as that seems to be everywhere nowadays. And so we all know that the inflation rate, generally the CPI, is compared against the same month of the previous year, is how they run that. So April, everything was up 3.4% on average. What I have here is a breakdown of different types of products.
Okay.
And what their inflation actually is.
What's the really big one at the top?
22.9%. Auto insurance.
Really? Why?
Maybe people like crashing their cars.
Well, you have the best experience with that.
I didn't really like it, but yes, I do.
I'm curious, like with insurance, is there a distinction between general inflation and a rise in rates due to a rise in claims? Because they're not really the same thing.
Or is it that we have people going back to work and they might have stopped driving, or people that moved from the city where they didn't have to drive to now, that's what spawned the housing bubble that we're in, is people moving out of urban environments into suburban environments. Are they now having to get cars, and because they have such a low, I don't know, that's a weird one.
There's also the increases that we've seen in car prices.
True.
And replacement prices.
That makes sense.
Not only the car price, but if you get an fender bender and you got to replace your headlight, that's gone from being a $50 part to a $600, $700 part.
Yes. I had to replace one little tiny part of a radio.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to cost me $150 with the labor.
That's where Amazon and eBay are really good.
Oh, I have no skills.
Well, my third brake light on my old truck went out. It was a strip of LEDs. Two of those LEDs went out. If I wanted to replace the individual LEDs, $65 a pop from one of the big three automakers in Detroit with a blue oval. If I went on eBay and found one that came from China for the entire assembly, it was $16.95 plus $20 shipping. I hated to pay the shipping, but I would much rather pay that than $130 to then go into the array and replace it myself. So, yeah, car parts are crazy. What else we got on the inflation side?
So the number 2 item for April was rent at 5.4, housing overall at 4.5%. Those are the top 3. Restaurant meals is coming in at number 4. That's at 4.1. We said overall inflation is at 3.4. What was actually the lowest?
Yeah, let's see what the lowest is, because I see some negative ones down there.
Any guesses on the lowest inflation?
Grocery prices.
Certainly not. Rental cars.
Huh.
Is that not interesting? I don't know what that is about. It's got to be something with demand, perhaps.
I would have to say demand, or a change in travel habits with that one's strange.
Because that ties into the auto insurance thing too. So that doesn't make sense. That piece of it. Just thought that was really weird.
That is very weird.
The next, and then used vehicles down 6.9% in the month of April.
These are year-over-year trends, and
Correct.
so we've seen a change in the market. The grab whatever you could get off a car lot mentality is gone. Rental cars are not as because rental cars were an option for people a year ago when you couldn't get a car on the lot and you needed a car. They could charge you whatever they wanted. Now they can't. So that
a lot of rental car companies were selling their inventory because the demand for the cars was so high.
Well, they sold their inventory because there was no demand in 2020, then those that had cars were selling them in 2021, 22, 23. When there was such a demand, they could get more for it. They were actually repossessing people that had actually rented their cars. They were confiscating them overnight so they could sell them and leaving people high and dry. That was a whole thing last year and the year before. So outside the auto industry, where has inflation lowered?
Toys down 7.9%.
Define a toy.
Yahoo Finance does not.
Okay.
Sounds like I might finally get that PlayStation 5.
I figured you would have had that by now.
So just some other ones on here. Used vehicles down 6.9. I've mentioned that one already. Airfare, for furniture, appliances, and school books and supplies are the biggest ones that had deflation. They were all down 3% or more.
Well, what's interesting is these shifts in inflation don't really seem to be having an impact market-wise. Like, you're not hearing about a crazy rush on auto lenders and auto insurers climbing the charts. State Farm is not rivaling Nvidia right now, and neither is Hertz seemingly suffering, at least from what the trends show.
I used to work for them.
Did you?
I did. Anyway.
Non-starter.
So that I tried, it went nowhere. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Pets and pet products are actually down slightly. And household energy is up 3.3. Medical care is actually a little bit lower, lower than the general rate of 3.4.
That's because everybody bought a Peloton during the COVID shutdown and got healthy.
Isn't Peloton going out of business?
They took $1 billion loan to try to get their finances in order.
Yeah, I mean, their products are super expensive.
They're very expensive. They are not necessities, and I don't see where. When your success relies on the average person motivating themselves to get healthy.
I was going to say it's a very expensive coat hanger.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, how many of us had like a Nordic track or a treadmill in your house 30 years ago that hadn't been used in 5+ years?
We still have a treadmill, and we have a upright exercise bike.
How was the last time you used it?
I used it yesterday to hang the dog blankets on while they dried.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got an elliptical, I've got a treadmill, a weight bench, and then once a year something comes along and it's like, oh, that's when I need to finally get motivated. And then my wife rolls her eyes.
But I mean, this is a really good example of our income plans are inflation adjusted. So knowing what inflation is doing is very important. So when we craft an income plan for someone, we're counting on the fact that prices are going to rise, because over the long term, insurance might be down, or insurance is up, rental cars might be down, but when you travel, you're going to need a rental car. You're going to pay more year over year. So when we craft an income plan, that's inflation is a very important part of it. But at the same time, people could look at this and say, oh, insurance prices are going up. I need to buy State Farm now. And it could be a bad decision. So knowing what these metrics mean, knowing how to interpret them is all very important to do. These are important things to know how to do. And if you don't have the experience, you might make a misread.
And another thing too, I mean, I've seen a lot of people that try to come up with their own income plans, and some of them do a decent job, some of them don't. There's a lot of pieces that go into it. I mean, nobody thinks about the increases in Social Security and trying to figure out what an average on that is. Well, along with that comes Medicare, and so the Medicare is expected to generally go up. It hasn't always the last few years, but overall, that goes up just like anything else does. And so I've seen a lot of plans where they've done an okay job, but they sometimes they'll have no idea what they're actually spending. That's another thing that's common to see.
I feel like not to keep on with restaurants and food and inflation, but I feel like everybody misjudges how often they truly eat out.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Nobody wants to admit it, but everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do one of those meal plans where they send you all the ingredients and the recipe, and that essentially forces us to cook 4 to 5 days a week.
That's
So
a
that would
lean
only
cuisine
be,
with extra steps, is what that
I
is.
mean, listen. You know.
But yeah, so that is one of the things you have to watch out for when planning for your retirement, and that is what we do here at Franklin Retirement. Again, if you have any questions on coming up with your own income adjusted income plan, inflation adjusted income plan, too many I's, inflation adjusted income plan, you want to reach out to us at info@franklinrs or 215-657-9200, which you can see on this banner below.
Just while we're on that topic, real quick,
Mhm.
another thing that people rarely consider and really don't even know how to account for this is what happens if a spouse dies. From an income perspective, how does
Yeah.
that go? What happens with Social Security if there's a pension? What about your expenses? Do they get cut in half? Do they get cut by some other percentage? Do they stay the same? One of those things that's not always uniform across the board, but professional, generally has a pretty good idea and a good amount of experience in seeing real life examples and being able to kind of translate that into what that's going to look like specifically for you, which, the majority of people, frankly, they just don't know.
There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of unknown, and when there's always that fear of the unknown, you don't want to even approach it because why think about it? It makes your head hurt. I don't want to deal with this right now. Push it off to the side, and you don't deal with it until you have to deal with it.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they're still, they go into retirement and they're still in that, oh, I need to save and cut corners in this mode because that's how they lived for the last 40 years working. A lot of them, they need to stay in that mode, but some of them don't.
Yeah.
Some of them are well within their means to spend more. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't, and
Yeah.
it's very hard to actually change your whole outlook or your whole approach to living and spending when you do have that capacity. And for some folks, they really do, and it would be good for them to be able to enjoy their retirement. They don't necessarily need to buy store brand macaroni and cheese anymore, but they're just been in that mindset.
Yeah.
And sometimes one of the things that we'll do is we'll try to get them out of it and say, listen, you got plenty of money, enjoy it.
Yep.
You can.
If you don't fly first class, somebody else will.
On your dime.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what do you got on the agenda today?
So I found an article in the Wall Street Journal, and BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager out there, bigger even than Vanguard and Fidelity, they're going to start adding in annuities to their 401k plans. So the way this will work is for people who are in what we call target date funds, the funds that adjust as you get older and as you get closer to retirement. Typically what we've seen in the past is the bond portion of those portfolios continues to ratchet up, as a client gets closer to retirement. But what BlackRock is going to do is once a target date fund reaches the point where the client is 55, the client can elect to purchase an annuity. So the bond portion of that target date fund, that portion of that money will then go into buying an annuity. And from that age, 55 all the way up till 59 and a half to age 72, whenever the client retires,
right,
they can choose to then purchase an income annuity with that portion of those funds. So this is automatically going to get, put into some people's 401k plans. And as, we've all seen.
It's not an opt-in, it's a automatically?
Correct. If you're in a target date fund.
Okay.
Whether or not you actually buy the income annuity, like when you retire, that's up to you. But it's going to go into this, this pot under the assumption that you're going to purchase the annuity when you retire. So, and as we've seen, we have a lot of people who come in, and when we look at their 401k statements or 403b statements, they're in target date funds. That's sort of the default, investment that everybody goes in. So because everybody tells you like, oh, you pick the date around when you think you're going to retire and you buy that fund. And those funds aren't right for everybody. And obviously in the plan, you have the option of choosing how you want to invest your money. So,
So it's something anybody that is invested with BlackRock in their 401k, they need to be very mindful of this.
It really anywhere. I mean, Vanguard has a ton of them. Fidelity. I mean, they've all got these, and they're pretty well standard. I mean, if you don't know what you're looking at, you see, 2060 fund. I'm going to be retired. I turn 65 in 2059. That you're just automatically going to kind of default to that because it sounds simple and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially I was going to mention, how many times have we seen, the TIAA plans where, a chunk of that is in an annuity and the client, didn't even know. So.
Yeah, and there's a million different types of annuities and they can do different things for you. So it's not just, the word annuity isn't like a catch-all. I mean, there's a ton of diversity within the annuity space. So certainly something that would need more research on your end, or you got to know what you have or what you're buying.
Don't buy anything based on its title. I'm sure we would have to disclaim that, and I'm sure there will probably be a disclaimer on the screen once compliance gets a hold of this. But as a general rule, it is probably a good idea to not buy anything just based on its title. Although, on the counter side, people who say don't judge a book by a cover kind of forget why a book has a cover in the first place. But that's a different show.
That's profound.
Think so?
I do.
I'm going to write a book.
You should.
So what else you got, Mike, on this? We kind of interrupted you and went off tangent.
No, that's basically it. Just, as you said, like, know what you're investing in. I mean, for a lot of people, their 401ks, they're the biggest piece of their pie when it comes to retirement savings. And, again, it doesn't hurt to come in and talk with a professional and make sure that, you're properly allocated and you're not buying anything, that's taking you by surprise.
And speaking of talking with a professional, we're professionals. So if you want to talk to a professional and you don't know where to find one and you find yourself watching this podcast, hey, we're professionals. You can reach out to us at Franklin Retirement Solutions. Any of us can help. Me, Mike, Kyle, or the two senior advisors here, Peter and Rob. Any of us can help you with these questions. You want to give us a call at 215-657-9200 or reach out to us via email, info@franklinrs.com. And franklinrs.com is also our website. You can visit us there, see all the different things we do, request a copy of our book that has already been written, and sign up for our newsletter as well. Lots of things you can do on the website. Least of all, watch this video. So anybody have anything else before we go for the week?
Go Phillies.
Kyle, you were close.
I was going to say, have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, happy Memorial Day weekend. Hope you grill something good if you're grilling. And we will see you guys back next week on a short week after a nice 3-day weekend. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Have a good one.